Are you a beginner trying to navigate the world of fitness but feeling overwhelmed by all the conflicting information out there? Well, you're not alone. In today's video, we're busting 5 common gym myths that every beginner falls for. Get ready to separate fact from fiction and save yourself from wasting time and effort on ineffective practices. Welcome back to another video. I'm Brendan Martinez. I'm currently getting my doctorate in physical therapy. I've personally fallen for all 5 of these myths when I first started going to the gym, and we're going to be debunking them all today. On the left of the screen, you can see teasers to the 5 myths, and we're going to be using research in the current literature to prove why these are not correct. Science has proven that when we first start exercising, our bodies can make a lot of improvements in just a short period of time. Therefore, knowing these 5 myths will allow you to optimize your training and avoid these 5 common pitfalls so you don't make these mistakes when you start going to the gym. Okay, so the first myth is that you need to stretch before you do a workout. Now let me explain, because this is actually 100% true, and I can hear you all right now. Then what makes this a myth? Yeah, that's what you sound like. However, the reason this is a myth is because most people perform static stretching prior to exercise. Research over and over again has proven and shown that static stretching prior to exercise is not ideal, and dynamic stretching is much more effective. So before we dive into why this is, let's first define what static stretching and dynamic stretching is. Static stretching is when you perform a stretch, but you are not moving. A great example of these are the stereotypical hamstring stretch that we all at one point or another have performed. Now, opposite to static stretching, dynamic stretching is when you are elongating the muscle, but only for a temporary period of time while you're moving. So you are actually not holding that muscle in an elongated position for an extended period of time. Time and time again, static stretching has been inferior to dynamic stretching in warm-ups because static stretching decreases your power, it actually increases your likelihood of injury, and it just decreases your overall performance. In a study done in 2013, they noticed that static stretching induces significant and practically relevant negative acute effects on maximal muscle strength and explosive muscular performance, regardless of the age, gender, or training status. Essentially, the takeaway is don't do these to warm up. Okay, jumping to the next myth, we have, if I'm not sore, I didn't train hard enough. This was something that I thought for several years when I first started training, and it wasn't until a few of my exercise science classes that I finally learned that this was a myth. When you initially start exercising, you're almost guaranteed to be sore because you're introducing an external and different stimuli to your body that it's just not used to. The process and phenomenon of being sore is what's known as DOMS. And essentially, this is an acronym that stands for Delayed Onset Muscle Soreness. DOMS normally starts 24 to 48 hours after a workout, hence why it's delayed. And this is going to be a phenomenon that will stick with you throughout your entire exercise and lifting career. However, our central nervous system is very good at adapting to stress. And when you continue to do different exercises over and over, your body adapts and you actually become less and less sore. The takeaway from this is just because you are not sore doesn't mean that you didn't effectively work out a muscle or you won't see any progress. This phenomenon of DOMS causes a lot of experienced and new lifters to chase after that soreness. But like I just mentioned, this soreness is not required for muscle growth. And if you are using progressive overload, which you should be using, and I will cover that more in depth in a different video, but if you are effectively using progressive overload, you eventually will be getting less and less sore, like I mentioned earlier. Progressive overload will slowly introduce increased load and resistance to your body over a prolonged period of time. This will make your exercise regimen much safer and more efficient. So the takeaway at this point is don't chase DOMS. Jumping into the third myth is that you need to lift heavy to build muscle. Once again, please hear me out because I promise this will make sense. Challenging yourself and increasing resistance is 100% required for muscle growth and muscle hypertrophy. However, when you compensate form to increase the load and resistance, that's where this myth comes into play. I think we all can picture that lifter at whatever gym we go to where they're doing bicep curls with a weight way heavier than they should be, and they're using their body weight, throwing the weight up and slamming it back down essentially. And while theoretically this is still working your biceps, it is actually using your biceps a lot less, therefore decreasing the amount of work going through the biceps. You are compensating using momentum and using pretty much your core and trunk musculature to get that weight up. And this holds true with every exercise. And you're heavily increasing the risk of injury while not really getting much out of it. So the risk reward is not there. Instead of focusing on increasing your weight, focus on form and control. These are going to be 2 very important principles in your bodybuilding program. Studies have shown over and over that eccentric contractions, or essentially contracting the muscle as it is elongating, is essential and more important actually for muscle growth. So jumping back to that bicep example I just talked about, when you're letting the weight just completely go down without controlling it, you're actually missing the most essential and important part of the exercise. So once again, focus on your form, focus on control, and then slowly progress the weight as you can tolerate without compensating. Prioritize these two, and I promise you, you will go much further. Jumping into myth number 4, we have more exercise is better. Similar to all the other ones, this was a myth that I fell for right when I first started exercising. And we all hear those bodybuilders, pro athletes that go to the gym for 5 hours and they're doing non-stop exercise. And I'm thinking to myself like, maybe I'll try it one time, give it a try. Probably shouldn't have done that, honestly. This is what's classified as overtraining. And these people are able to do that because the majority of times they're taking testosterone, they're taking steroids, or they're taking other supplements that don't really require a lot of rest time. In both new and experienced lifters, this is what's going to lead to overtraining, and this is going to prolong your recovery, increase your DOMs, and heavily increase your likelihood of injury. Lucky for me, when I did this, I actually wasn't injured, but I know many people that have gone to the gym for 3 or 4 hours, and then they get an acute injury and they're out for a few months. In reality, optimal exercise training is way more important. Focusing on intensity will take you much further than the duration that you're actually at the gym. If you're using a well-constructed program, and it's a high intensity, you really don't need to be there for 3, 4, or 5 hours. Even a half hour will suffice. Optimal exercise will result in less injuries, improved time management, and better overall progress at the gym. Myth 5, and arguably my biggest pet peeve when it comes to the fitness industry, is I can lose belly fat by doing abs. So ultimately, this is the theory of spot reduction. And more broadly, spot reduction is the belief that you can target where you're losing fat by what exercises you are doing. You hear a lot of fitness gurus and even experienced personal trainers saying, do this ab workout, you're gonna burn all your belly fat. And please do me a favor, if you ever go to a personal trainer and they say this to you, I want you to walk right out the door, because I promise you, you're better off doing that, please. According to ACE, spot reduction doesn't work because it usually targets muscles that are relatively small through exercises that are relatively insignificant in terms of enhancing overall fitness, strength, and energy expenditure, regardless of how much you quote-unquote feel the burn when training them. If you have any questions about fat loss, I actually just made a video on this, so you should probably check it out. I mean, what the heck? But just to recap, spot reduction is a myth, and you are gonna lose fat globally. You can't choose where you're losing fat. All right, just to recap, we have myth number 1, you need to stretch before doing a workout. Myth number 2, if I'm not sore, I didn't train hard enough. Myth number 3, you need to lift heavy to build muscle. Myth number 4 is more exercise is better. And the last myth, and still the worst, is I can lose fat in my belly by doing abs. Knowing to avoid these 5 myths is going to put you way ahead, and you're going to make so much more progress when you first start going to the gym. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe for more, and drop a comment down below if you have any questions about the content covered. Have a great rest of your day.